Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast. We are clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity and practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, welcome back to Reframe Mindset Podcast. My name is Constant Brooks. This episode I talk about it's one of those things where I, you know, the thing about the podcast is that it's a way for me to kind of rationalize some things I will see and make no sense, would make no sense to me in my normal lens of life, but no. And the reason why it would not make sense to me in the normal sense of life was because I was poor. I was poor. I lived in I'm thinking in a sense of scarcity. Certain things I will be introduced to, it will be weird. It will be weird because it's so unnatural. But the thing about it now in this evolved state is that I don't see any problems with it, and I think my views would not have changed, but now I have a more evolved view on it. This topic will be like churches can upgrade. Yeah, I'm back now. So yeah, churches can. So basically, the topic is that churches can upgrade. Just like everything else, just like a game, it can have updates. Just like a business, it can have changes and stuff and things. So in that church, you can have upgrades. You can have a better building and all those stuff. You can have better different ways of paying because the reason why this episode came up was I said the church that gave me the more that enlightened me a lot was, and I went to this church. What happened was that I see that they were taking credit card as offering payments. I know I record this episode because I just received a credit card and stuff. And it's one of those things where at the time it was so weird and stuff, but what I realize now in my years, not going to different because over these past few years I go to different churches and stuff, and so what I see is that there's nothing wrong with that. I said that's just an evolved version of it. And what happened was that the thing is, I see this church when I was at this university. So what happened was it was very somewhat advanced. So you have credit card as a payment method, but you can always give not only that you have bands. You see the TV with the scripture and the songs and all those stuff. It was like one of those really advanced churches I would see on the TV when I was younger. When I was younger, I usually just watch the church on the Sunday, or see the church on the Sunday. So so seeing that and then recognize that okay, there are churches like that, and so what I realized is that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with upgrading your way, the church, or making it better and stuff like that. But the important thing is not to leave the core. And the core is very important. Core is very important because the thing about it is that with the podcast, I say one of these episodes where I think it's things take a little takes time episode where people will come and listen to this podcast and all of a sudden think it's this successful thing. I wonder how in the world but not realizing that hey, it took time to actually reach this far. It takes time to reach this far, and what happened is that through these changes and all those stuff, the core, I try to keep the core the same as the start up until now. And that's the important thing about the church. The church is really important because there's instructions about the fact that you cannot remove or add anything to the Bible. There are very specific instructions about that. So you can upgrade the building, you can make it more better, you can deliver the message, not from the Bible using a tablet and we are in technological world now. You can do that, you can have better instruments, better microphone, train the singers to sing a lot better. I understand those stuff now, but the core of it has to remain the same because what happened is that there's Bi- there's verses in the Bible that says that as well, where you have some people that when they're praying all these fancy prayers, a lot of big words and all those stuff, and then feeling that that is the way to pray. But man, what Bible say, even the simplest of prayers, simple one prayer is a legit prayer. It's a legit prayer. So what would happen is that you have this advanced building, and then a small child now will go into this advanced building and see it and be like, oh my God, this is what a church should be like, this advanced thing. And so, but neglecting the church, the building is not what is important. It's the lessons that's in the Bible to understand the relevance of the building and stuff. So, if so, the significance of why is the church taking the money? Things that's supposed to be known. Now, why are people singing in the church? They're very beautiful singers. It's important for religion and society. It's important to have these core information and understanding at the core, even as you upgrade. Because what will happen is that you reach an advanced level, and new people will come in, and then you don't know why this change occur. You just come in and see the successful. That's a good thing why you history is important. If you don't know your history, you doomed to repeat it. And in the Bible there are very much experiences where some around Gomorrah where the richness of their lifestyle made them commit a lot of immoral acts, and then when it's time for it to be destroyed, a lot of people died. Even righteous, especially a lady that basically didn't have to die, just basically die and stuff, and all those stuff is is due to the fact that you get caught up in the advanced nature of the church that you forget the core of it. So that's the thing where you don't. So the basic essence of it is that don't despise the days of small beginnings. Don't despise the days when you're a small little church. And what I would also add to that are when you're just basically a small congregation, because in my grandmother's time, the church where my grandmother was buried, you just see is a lot more advanced than when it is not advanced compared to the one that I spoke about what I see at university, but it's way more it's coming a far way compared to when my grandmother used to speak about it because they said the location that it was, that's not the location it was really different and all those stuff. And what happened is that that same church, it was different in my mother's time as well. 'Cause what happened was that my mother would speak about it and speak about the stuff that she usually do at the church, at my grandma's funeral and stuff. And so I realized that it underwent changes. But when I went there, I could always see that the core was always the core aspects of the church that I could always recognize it. And so compared to my reason why the church that I went to the university was skeptical was that it it was really it was advanced to the point where it was advanced and and to me the message was being lost. You go to that church not to embrace the message of God and be saved and sanctified and all those stuff. You go to that church to see advanced worshiping way, and you may get lost in the sauce, lost in the sauce of seeing the fancy band playing. You see the choir very advanced. You see the bands. We have the scripture reading and all those stuff. See all these advanced stuff, and the essence will be lost. The essence will be lost. So it's one of those things where, and it's one of the important stuff where teaching the Bible at home is important as well. Where you have to actually read the Bible for yourself to teach it to your children and stuff. So that when they go to church, they have a grounded view of it. They have a grounded view of that what the church is supposed to be. And the reason why this is a weird episode and stuff like that is because I'm speaking about it, but I don't really have that much experience in the church to know what it should be. I've gone to very church churches and stuff. I was not really that a person that already study in the church and why this and that and all those stuff. But just knowing that, with my grandmother passing, knowing that the young generation will have to take out the mantle and doing all those stuff eventually. But if we do not know all these important information that was passed down from the old generation, what will happen is that when the older generation is passed, then everything is lost. Everything is lost. The whole core, everything will be lost, and be like, so so that's the thing about it. Where and so basically, what they involve you is that churches can upgrade. They can have a more advanced church. I bet the big monastery churches that those are very valid churches. The important thing is that the core always stay the same. You can always go. The important thing is that you could always go to the pastor and ask him about the time way before this advanced time and say, well, why is it that I'm supposed to give you money to the church? And you can always ask pastor that and they should be able to give you an answer. And you can always leave the church and go and look into that answer for yourself. Because the thing about it that it's not to have the advanced building and all those stuff. But the important thing is that you have to go out and research for yourself and come to your own understanding. Because when the judgment comes, just like doing a test, it's not you and the pastor doing the test, it's you and whoever is you're doing the judgment, being in the judgment. So that you have to take the time to actually say, okay, you can always go back and ask, well, why are you taking money from me for the church? You get the answer. You get the answer. I was like, why is and then I can ask why is some churches using only cash payment but you're using credit cards and that payment and people can give a valid reason. I think about it is that reach in is it advanced world now where cards and stuff are normalized. So it could be valid reasons. And you'd be like, yeah, those are valid reasons, but the core sense is that the important thing is that the offering is for a certain reason. It's just that the method of payment has upgraded, has upgraded, but the core should not be changed. The Bible says about giving offering should not be tampered. You should not be out here saying, okay, you're supposed to give more and stuff like that. Than what the Bible said. Are you not supposed to take the money and do something that you're not supposed to do with it because you basically lost the essence of the thing, and then you are then boom, a full condemnation of the church will happen. Where boom, you'll see what happens is like, ah, you say, we'll get all these rewards, and boom, you don't get all these rewards, and you'll be like, why? And it's because you upgrade the church and stuff, but you lost the essence of why those things were important. So you lost the message. You maybe tamper the message, and oh, then when you tamper the message now, then everything is lost, and then nobody gets saved. It's just a fancy building with fancy celebration, fancy praise and worship and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's really complex, and this episode came to me because we're going into 2024 now, and it's one of those things where is I have I upgrade my phone to a phone closest to the latest phone of that brand, and it's a really far upgrade for me. And the thing about it is that it I'm from a generation where it's way before a smartphone, way before a smartphone, and so it's one of those things where my wisdom about times before then are really important. Where the lessons from the elders are really important. You can tell about a time way before these advanced times, you know, because what happens is that when the technology fails, you will have to go back to these pre-medial times. But if you're only used to the futuristic times, when the pre or the pre or the pre where the technology fails and go back to prehistoric times, you basically will not make it because you're just basically be struggling struggling to adapt to this new lifestyle where you have to fend for yourself, not getting assistance from technology and all those stuff. So when boom, all technology break down and you do not cannot take car payment anymore, the cash and all those stuff, and then be like, why is it? Then you're out there and be like, oh my god, how much I'm supposed to give? I'm just basically just tap in my my card and they just take the amount. But now I have to find out how much I have to give, go to this and that and stuff. Yeah, so things like that can happen. Things like that can happen, and you feel like, but if you do not understand the reason when it happens, then you're lost in the sauce, and that would mean that you weren't someone that was being you did not get the message that the church was sending, or the church did not deliver the message correctly. It just means that you were just a person that was enjoying the celebration, the niceness of the church. So when it's time to be saved, and you might get left hanging because uh, and the thing about it that not about also being saved. The churches give you real life lessons as well. Like the Bible gives you real life lessons that you can apply to your life to have a better family life and all those stuff. So if you basically just focus on getting a fancy church building, but using the sense of what the church to put teach you some stuff that is put apply in your life to get better family lives, um, work life and all those stuff. If you basically lost that essence, what will happen is that the church will be only focusing on the advancement of the self and not the members, not the members. So yeah, that is another problem as well. So yeah, so I just want those things where this episode is kind of important because now I'm going into 2024, I'm going into the future, and it doesn't make no sense to go back. But it's important to know, learn the lessons from the past and not forget those lessons so that when the important time comes, when an upgrade comes, you understand the core of what that is. So when the new changes come, you just remember that, okay, this is what this means. So you don't get lost in the sauce. So, like, for example, cryptocurrencies come, but you remember what is the currency used for? What is the money used for? And stuff like that. So make transaction and stuff. The core essence of what it is, you do not forget the core. It's just as a new way, new advanced way of doing it. And then you can make a proper judgment on how to actually say, okay, this is the best way to approach this new version of approaching currencies or monies or stuff. Mm. So that's basically it. Just like a more advanced TV. Can have a more of a smart TV, but all you use the TV basically for entertainment or watching news or stuff like that. We have you can have better. And the thing about it also is that it keeps you grounded as well as a church where you do not make unnecessary upgrade. You do not go out and say, okay, I'm going to upgrade this and that. You just basically say, okay, at this point, that's all we need now to make reach this point where we can make this upgrade. We can upgrade and invest in our choir so that our choir sounds better. Because some of our churches, basically people coming at when I come from a time where people just come in and they basically just sing. You don't have to do the best singer. You just come and sing the songs. Because the song is what's important. The best singer is not being important, and that's the thing, and that is important. But you might reach a point in time in the church where you're like, okay, it's time to invest in singing lessons to at least make the singer sound better. That is a very valid side way to actually invest in making the better church better. And what will happen is that you have better singers. You have better singers, and then when better singers come now, the songs are sung a lot better. Um, People from the church can become more likely to become professional singers because there is a part of the church that focus on singing upgrades and all those stuff. So and the same thing again with the band. Coming from a time where the church that I started with did not have any instruments or anything like that. Just people coming with their tambourines. But eventually, boom, instruments were introduced. You know, inter- were introduced, a better building was built and stuff. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you can have places where you just train people to use those instruments and then they can actually be productive outside of the church in playing those instruments as well. But the core of what the instrument is to make sure the art of singing the song or bringing the song forward is better. It's not changing the message, just like making the song um, representing after message what the song is saying a lot better. And it's like, yeah, we just don't. So yeah, it's there's a lot of things can be upgraded in the church, and you can upgrade a church a lot. Just like over the pandemic, lots of churches went online and start streaming on Facebook and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. And what happens is that now that the pandemic is over, there's a lot of churches that still does stream on the Facebook and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that the core. after your message should not change. You should, and that's important that I've mentioned it all these Sundays and stuff. All those stuff should not change. Just that you're increasing the reach of your audience. You reach a point in time where your core church members are spread far away from the core church building. Just like my grandmother was come from a time where it's coming from the humble beginnings, and then boom, she put in her work, and then now she was retired enough far away from where the church is. And what happened was that I basically got internet, and then I set up the TV so that she could actually stream the church from Facebook and watch it. And it was really enjoyable for her in her retired time, because it would be something, and she would just tell me about the days way before those advanced times. So it's not I'm talking way before the streaming and stuff. People tell me about, yo, you'll see the church how it's advanced now. I'd be like, nah, bro, that's how it was. We didn't even have a building like that. It was like people congregated and stuff, and then boom, eventually that building came up and stuff. So it's like she would tell me all that, and then what happens now? She watching it from the TV. It'll be something like for her, be like, oh my god, we came a long way. That's something you can see, but like, oh my god, we came a long way. And it's like, yo, and it's good to have someone like that to just keep you going, to be like, yo, this is how far we came. This is how far we came and stuff. So, oh, yo, I said, so that basically for this episode. So yeah, churches can upgrade, but you just have to always remember the core of it. Remember the small beginnings and stuff, because when it's big and you're getting a lot of new church members and all those stuff, the old OG heads, the old first persons that introduced church and all those stuff, those people will be important to give you a grounded view of what it was like, just so you know the core messages, so that when you make advances going forward, you do not mess up the core message and those stuff. So yeah, that's basically how it. Um, that's basically it for this episode, man. Yeah, so that's basically it. Thank you for listening, and look forward for the next episode.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.